Welcome to the Healthy Youth Ministry Podcast. HYM exists to encourage, equip, and empower youth pastors and next-gen leaders. Our heart is to develop healthy youth pastors and leaders who are equipped to pioneer healthy youth ministries. So to help our community continue to grow, it would mean the world to us if you shared this content with any youth pastors or leaders in your sphere of influence. And lastly, we would be honored to host you at any of our 2025 HYM One Days or the National Conference in October. To stay up to date, follow our Instagram at HYM Conference or check out our website at hymconference.com. Well, with all that said, it's time to get stronger together because we know that one of the major keys to a healthy youth ministry is a healthy youth pastor. Let's grow.
Is feedback your friend or your foe? That's what we're talking about on this episode of the Healthy Youth Ministry Podcast. We know when the leader is healthy, the ministry is healthy. So what does it look like to embrace feedback? If you've been listening or watching, we told you we were going to do an episode on feedback and evaluation. So here it is. I love the portion of scripture in Exodus chapter 18 when Jethro rolls up on the scene and is watching Moses lead. He literally, the first conversation they have, he talks about, look what God's been doing. That's incredible, Mo. Way to go. I'm proud of you. Then it says the next day, Jethro observes Moses and sees that, man, there's some things happening that doesn't make much sense to Jethro. So Jethro says, Moses, what are you doing? As I'm observing, I'm going to give you a little bit of feedback. What if you broke this down that not everyone was coming to you? And he gives him feedback and Moses listens. What's crazy when you look into scripture, Moses was an incredible leader. To put in youth ministry terms, think about the logistics of Moses having to lead the people out of bondage, out of Egypt. Think about the food systems, the sandwich making, everything that it took to move these people, some of them that didn't want to go. And Moses is leading them and he's listening to God and he's doing everything he can to become effective as a leader. And Jethro comes along and says, hey, Mo, you're doing good, but you're wearing yourself out. And actually, if you keep this up, you're going to wear the people out too. This feedback conversation really moves Moses into a higher level of effectiveness. And for this to happen, it was Moses leaning in and receiving feedback. There are two proverbs that we can lean into when it comes to the concept of feedback. Proverbs 19:20 says this, listen to the advice and accept instruction, that you may gain wisdom in the future. Listen and accept. Listen to that advice and accept those instructions. Proverbs 12:15 says it like this, the way of the fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. There's a me that I can't see. So what is it like to be on the other side of me? Have you ever asked the question to someone, what's it like to be on the other side of me? That day for Jethro, he got to experience kind of the Michael Jackson popcorn meme. He's watching Moses lead, and then he says, hey, I've observed a few things. Have you, as a leader, ever asked the question to the people that you're leading or the people that are around you to think about the 360 degrees of leadership? Have you ever asked them, what's it like to be on the other side of me? I'll tell you, when you do, and you are listening to that advice, you're going to receive some good advice. You're going to receive some constructive advice that I believe if you listen could really help you. It doesn't matter where you're at on your leadership journey, if you are in your year one as a youth pastor or leader, or if you're in year 20, there is a you that you can't see. So what's it like to be on the other side of you? So before we get into, and we're going to open up the toolbox, we are going to look at all these tools when it comes to feedback and how to grow in evaluation and evaluating your ministry and evaluating your services, all these tools that I have learned over the last few decades of youth and next gen ministry. But before we get into all those tools, you as a leader have to embrace feedback. Is feedback your friend or your foe? Are you an enemy of feedback or are you a friend of feedback? You are not a friend of feedback if you and feedback never hang out. You are a foe of feedback when someone gives you feedback and you find yourself putting your fist up and defending yourself. Now, I understand that there's some times that you have to let people understand the context and understand that context is kindness and, hey, let me help you understand where I'm at. But are you embracing feedback or are you fighting against feedback? Is feedback your friend or your foe? I've already said a few of the sticky statements, but there are these sticky statements that we use when it comes to feedback. That feedback is our friend. Clarity is kindness. Evaluation leads to elevation. If you've ever done any sort of research on climbing, and I know there's so many different Netflix documentaries and shows on Discovery that talk through what it looks like to be a climber when it comes to truly going up massive mountains like Everest. Understand that there's different base camps that you're going to reach the summit, and at each base camp you're taking evaluation of your resources. What am I needing for the next leg of the journey? What can I leave behind? Understand that evaluation leads to greater elevation. Almost every great leader I know that is at the forefront of business or church leadership, guess what they do? They have high evaluation and feedback forums for people to give feedback because they know there's areas of the ministry, there's areas of their life that they can't see. So let's talk about that. You know, to me as a leader, I've always wanted and desired to have a culture of preparation, collaboration, evaluation, and transformation. In every level of leadership, as a young youth pastor, as a seasoned youth pastor, as a next gen pastor overseeing multiple ministries in multi-site locations, I'm going to do everything I can to create a culture of preparation. Man, we're going to be a group of leaders that will be prepared. A collaboration. I'm going to ask you, what do you think? And we're going to wrestle down because collaboration makes us better. Evaluation. After that event, after that assignment, we're going to stop and evaluate. In transformation, we want to see lives changed. And because that's a big part of who I am, I've realized over the years that evaluation, that feedback conversation has really helped us grow and see ministries continue to have a great kingdom impact. I love this quote from Dan Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A. There was a moment, you maybe have heard the story on a different podcast or you even read about the story. There was a moment that his team was trying to add more locations, and come on, we need some more locations of Chick-fil-A. Jesus Chicken, come on somebody. And so they're talking to him about how we need to open up more stores. And he has this moment that he says, if we make it better, they will demand us to become bigger. That's this culture. We're going to become better. You see, evaluation's about the truth, and the truth will set you free. So what's it look like to lead in such a way that evaluation is a part of your culture? If you've heard me speak or you've listened to the podcast, probably every other episode, I'll quote the Michael Hyatt quote that what gets on the calendar gets done. If evaluation or even collaboration is not on your calendar, guess what? You're not leading with evaluation. I was talking to a pastor a while back, and he was telling me, a lead pastor, he was kind of frustrated with his team. They had evaluation, feedback conversation, and his team gave him honest and helpful feedback, but he took it as a threat. He actually was questioning their loyalty. And I asked him, I said, Pastor, is this the first time you had a feedback conversation? And he said, yes. And I was like, well, you shouldn't feel threatened. There's not a question of loyalty. They're just being honest and open with you. But now you as the leader have to receive that and figure out what that means for you and the team to move forward. But what I realized in that conversation is that he hadn't had many feedback conversations. It wasn't on the calendar. So for you and I to grow and lead healthy youth ministries and young adult ministries, or whatever you're leading as a listener or someone watching this podcast, I just want to challenge you. Let feedback be a part of your leadership framework. Continue to grow and lead the way. How can I live and try my best to have extreme ownership? Is when I receive feedback that I don't fight it, but I receive it and say, you know what? I could do better. Let's get better together. We get another day to lead. I live to lead another day. But feedback makes me and helps me lead more effectively that next day. So let's open the toolbox. Let's look at some tools. There's a lot of them. And so if you're listening, you're going to have to probably stop and take some notes. But I love alliteration, and so you're going to hear some of those things. But there are a few things as a youth pastor, a ministry leader, that you should be evaluating on a regular basis. I believe that you should be evaluating these things almost weekly. You should be evaluating your services. Most of our listeners, you're leading in church context, you're leading a small group, you're leading a service. You should be evaluating those services on a regular basis. You should be evaluating your systems. How's it work? How's it function? We're going to talk more about that. You should also be evaluating your staff. If you don't have paid staff, you have volunteers that act like staff or dream teams. So on a regular basis, you should be evaluating weekly your services. Man, weekly your systems. Weekly your staff, your leaders. So when it comes to your services, there's something that I've always, I want you to lean into the process that I've led for a few decades. Is when it comes to our services, first off, we're going to pray through, God, what do you want to do in this service? We're going to think through. We're going to be in environments where we're thinking through the service. We're going to talk through, actually get out. If I could break this down to you in days, for us, we led a weekly Wednesday night service. So, man, we'd be praying through that service as we plan for the series and the year and the calendar. But then we would think through the next week. So on Thursday, I want you to hear this: pray through, think through, talk through, walk through, run through. Pray through, think through, talk through, walk through, run through. So pray in our planning process, in our preparation. Thursday, a week before our next Wednesday experience, we would think through, talk through, and you're going to hear another tool and how we did that here in a few moments. We would think through, write down what we're going to do that next week. The following Tuesday, we would talk through our service order or order of experience. We would talk through it and what elements are there. Then we would walk through that service on Tuesday night. And every person that had a role in that service, every switch, every light, every musician, like we would walk through, think through sports in this context. You know, they walk through the plays. And then lastly, on Wednesday night, we would do a full run through. That is how seriously we took putting a service together to serve students. And some of you wonder, like, I don't understand why we keep missing that video cue, or man, I don't understand why our services aren't effective, because you've never stopped and evaluated and continued to get better week after week. Understand, for us, we only had a few of these things, but then we got better and continued to grow in how we looked at our services. And I'm going to give you some tools here in a little bit that will even help you evaluate those services. So, man, we're constantly evaluating and giving feedback for our services. Systems. When it comes to your services and the things you do, I've always went through what I call the F4. man, how's it feel? How's it flow? How's it function? And then give me feedback to make it better. How's it feel? How's it flow? How's it function? Give me feedback. So when I walk into any space, like how's this flow? How's it feel? There's a feeling in the air. I was previously at a church that even like you could tell that their building had a smell. I'm like, that's insane. This is crazy. But they're thinking through the details. Man, what's this feel like? And how's it flow? So those are a little bit, again, man, our services, our systems, and staff. And I have a lot here. At Oaks Church years ago, we went through this kind of 5S evaluation when it came to our volunteers. Then it became our staff expectation in how we evaluated. Asking things like the 5 S's is it sustainable, satisfying, suitable, significant, or strengthening? And then evaluating that. Like, what's this look like? Is this sustainable? Does this fit your season of life? It's evaluating your staff, having open dialogue. Is this satisfying? Do you feel good? A lot of the staff that's worked for me over the years, I ask this question, are you having fun? Because if you're not having fun, we're missing the point. Man, are you having fun? Is this satisfying? We call it the James Brown principle. I feel good and I knew that I would. Is it suitable? Does this fit your personality and gifts? Is it significant? Is what you're doing adding value to you and to others? And is it strengthening? Are you growing in your relationship with God and others and in your gifts? Those 5 S's, we would talk about that. I was on staff at a church, at People's Church, and we would walk through our we call them the 5 H's. We'd walk through our culture values and talk through how are you living out these values in your life. So you need to have this evaluation with your team, with your leaders, so that they can become more effective, that they can be in their sweet spot in their leadership. Also, performance evaluations. For me, this should be happening a couple of times a year. But if these performance evaluations only happen a few times a year, and for the first time they're hearing about areas they need to grow in that evaluation, that's a problem. Your staff and your leaders should be looking forward to that evaluation. They should be looking forward to that performance review because they know they've been on a growth journey. We'll actually talk through our team and put them on a growth plan and walk through that. That's huge. Something else, another thing that I did years ago, I actually put this together, was kind of these questions for my one-on-one evaluations. I call it the G8. Again, if you're taking notes, you're going to have to slow down. There's a lot to write down when it comes to this podcast episode. The G8, this is what I use for my one-on-one evaluation tool with my team. And it's asking all these different questions. They all start with, G's the kind of the key word. Good, grow, give, grind, go, glad, God, goal. That was a lot. Throw a track behind that and we could put out a rap. And it's asking the question, what's going good in your life and ministry? Where do you need to grow? What are you giving away? There's no success without a successor. Asking that question, what are you giving away? Grind. What is getting the most of your energy? How are you grinding? Go. For me, you've heard our Stronger Together episodes. We are big believers in campus ministry and reaching students in schools. So go is, hey, what school events or campuses are you going to? Glad. What is bringing you the most joy in this season? God, what's God doing in your life? And then goal, what are some of the big goals you want to accomplish in the next 30, 60, 90 days? And you can even add kind of the SMART goal system to that. So I just gave you a lot. Services, systems, staff, what are the tools? You should be continuing those tools. Understand that G8 has morphed over the years. I've added more G's to it because I'm constantly going, man, I want to know who I'm working with. How am I creating this culture of evaluation and collaboration? So when it comes to weekly evaluation, again, lots of tools, open the toolbox. There's a few tools I've used, and a lot of these you're going to hear sound similar. It's just all about trying them on and what fits you best and what helps you remember them. What are some of the things? So here's some of the evaluation tools that we would use, and we'd use them in different settings. So one of them we called the evaluation pirate. It's the R's of evaluation. And it's asking 4 R questions: repeat, review, refresh, revival. And this is how we would do it. What work that we would like to repeat? So we want to repeat that. In football, we're like, hey, that play worked, let's do it again. And so repeat, what work that we'd like to repeat? Review, what didn't work and why? Let's review it, let's examine it, let's double click. Refresh, what's a new idea or solution that's going to bring a fresh new perspective? What's going to, how's that going to happen? And then the last one, revival, is what signs of revival, signs and wonders, students saying yes to Jesus, leaders taking next step. And so for me, you're going to hear a lot of our tools. Man, I want to make sure we don't miss what God is doing. You've heard me talk about the 2 wings of a plane, systems, or stats and stories, and systems, the engine. And so, in understanding, you need to know those things. But what's God doing? That's the evaluation pirate. The C4 evaluation, again, there's a lot. This is what we'd use in that Thursday meeting with our creative team, our worship team, talking through our next service. We would celebrate, collaborate, create, and communicate. First off, we would celebrate what God do last night, let's celebrate one another, and way to go on that video, way to go on this moment. And then we would collaborate. Okay, how can we become better? What are some things that didn't work? What can we do? Again, you're going to see different words, but a lot of the same meaning, a lot of these tools. And then we create the service order. What if we played this song? What if we did this video? We were creating. Then we communicate. Okay, now who's doing what? Celebrate, collaborate, create, communicate. Are you tracking with me? There's a lot. Another evaluation tool, actually, that I took from the G8 is the G4, and it's simply good, grow, God, give. And this is one that I actually, if I travel to a church and I'm asked to give evaluation, this is the tool that I use. It's super simple. What was good? Where do we need to grow? What did God do? Give me a new idea. Good, grow, God, give. Another evaluation tool, maybe you've heard this, it's the 4 helpful questions. I've added a 5th question to it. It's really the 5 helpful evaluation. And this is something, we would use this more when it comes to, not weekly, but we would do this when it comes to events that might be annually, events that we always do, and we would kind of use the 4 helpfuls. Or even we would take this when it comes to initiatives like small groups or Jesus clubs, or what that looks like. And so we talk through that. So the questions are, what is right? What is wrong? What is confusing? What is missing? And the 5th question I added to this is, what if? I just like to live in what can we do to improve that what if? And sometimes that can go in what's missing, but man, I just think for me personally, I like to ask that question. I want the leaders around me to be asking what if. But this is a huge tool that we use. Let's look at our last year and let's look at a ministry initiative. What is right about this ministry name? What is wrong about it? What's confusing? And to me, asking parents, asking other leaders outside of your community, this is a big deal with that. It's huge. Feedback is massive. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was a great podcast. Again, you hear me mention a lot of people because we're just in this thing together. We're trying to build the kingdom together. And so Rich Wilkerson Jr. had Chris Hodges on, the pastor of an amazing church of the Highlands. And it's a great, brilliant conversation. And if you're listening, if you've never heard of Grow Track, Grow Track was kind of the genesis of it. Started at Church of the Highlands, and you need to listen to the podcast. But ultimately, Chris Hodges talks about that he got people that didn't have a relationship with Jesus to come to a table, and he was talking through what he felt was Grow Track, but didn't have the language because he didn't want it to be churchy language. He wanted it to be language for people that were lost, that would want to come be a part of their church and live a life to the full. And it was through that he came up with that language to know God, to find freedom and discover your purpose, make a difference. That came from feedback. And you and I know that today, and a lot of churches have copy and pasted that, and it's become an effective tool. But the genesis comes from a man that heard from God, that got feedback from others, and implemented that feedback to make something more effective so more people could take steps and walk in purpose. Feedback. So, man, get other people at the table. That's a big part of feedback. Man, surrounding yourself. Early on in youth ministry, I got up on a Wednesday and said, hey, next Monday, come hang out with us. We're just going to be talking about how to make our services better, 4 o'clock on Monday. And we had 4 or 5 students show up. And then a few more students show up. What is crazy is almost every one of those students are in full-time ministry today because they had a seat at the table. And guess what? Our ministry became more effective and more efficient, and we made a bigger kingdom impact because it just wasn't me in an office by myself. It was students and leaders around me helping us become better. So whatever tool that you use, try to invite other people into the conversation, because evaluation and collaboration go together to create this beautiful place of feedback. And really, when you do that, those 5 kind of helpful evaluation, or 4 helpfuls, however you want to use it, you come up with your core issues and then you move forward towards action. I love this quote from Craig Groeschel. It's difficult to focus on how to improve if you don't know where you stand. How do we improve if you don't know where you're at? It's huge. Another great tool that we've used over the years, and we would use this when it comes to like camp, retreats, big events. We would do a 6 hats meeting. Again, we added a 7th hat, but it comes from a book called The 6 Thinking Hats by Edward D. Bono, and it's taking time to get into the details of the events. So the white hat's the detailed hat. The red hat's the emotional hat. The black hat's what went wrong. The yellow hat's what went right. The green hat is areas we can improve. The blue hat is the strategy we need for the next event. Then we added the purple hat is what did Jesus do at this event? What was the God story? But what was cool is we would take this tool and we would spend 4 hours. We would buy some people lunch, some of our team, some of volunteers that were at the camp or the retreat, or the big invite night. We would walk through this evaluation tool. Then we'd pull it back out. And what happened, we got better every year. It was huge. And so many of you that you're leading and you find yourself at that retreat again or at that invite night, and you're like, how many pizzas did we order last year? What did we do for that game? And because you didn't document, you didn't create feedback, forums, and conversations, you repeat the same mistakes over and over again. Feedback is your friend. You're a friend. So you got to hang out with feedback. Another thing, PDCA, plan, do, check, adjust. We're going to plan, we're going to do it, we're going to check, we're going to adjust. When I think about football, that's football. We're going to plan our attack, we're going to install plays, we're going to run the play, then we're going to check and learn, hey, here's how we can be more effective in that play. We're going to adjust and we're going to run the play again. Another way that you can receive feedback is, are you asking parents? You know, there's some of you that maybe you're not a parent, or you're not a parent of teenagers and you're leading a youth ministry or a next gen ministry, and you're like, man, we're crushing it. And then you have parents going, actually, you're missing the mark because you didn't communicate and talk to them. Man, what does that look like? That's why any restaurant you're at, any Uber service, they're like, hey, give us a review. Man, what's it look like so we can get better? How do we become more effective in what we're doing? So create feedback. We would give students feedback after camp. Hey, tell us 0 to 10, how was that game? How was this game? How was the food? Because sometimes in a room full of leaders, like, this is the greatest idea ever. And you have a 16-year-old going, this is the lamest idea ever. And so you need to create, moments of feedback. Another quote, Andy Stanley says, the clearer the vision, the fewer the options, the easier the decision. So we need to have a clear vision. How do we get more clear? We get people around us to help us. Man, it's easy to make decisions when you know all the information. How do we get all the information? Feedback. Feedback's your friend. Embrace it. Bros, I'm bros with feedback. Man, feedback's my sister. Like, man, I'm bro, man, because I want to become better. I really look at the last few decades of leading, And I can tell you the feedback conversations that elevated us to the next place of leadership. Man, I just know it. I know if you're listening, man, you are the lid. You are the lid to your organization. You are the lid to effectiveness. The only way for that lid to be lifted, man, is you spending time with the Lord and getting feedback from Him, but also surrounding yourself with people that's not going to tell you what you want to hear, but they're going to tell you what you need to hear so you can grow. It really is. I told you, some of the greatest leaders I know, they're constantly asking for feedback. How can I make this sermon more effective and clear? How can this leadership initiative? And they invite people in. And let us be known. Come on, healthy youth ministry community. Let us be known as leaders that invite feedback, that are friends with feedback. So don't get tired in asking questions and getting better. Galatians 6:9. Don't get tired in doing good, for at the right time, you'll reap a harvest of blessing if you don't give up. So don't give up in asking questions. Man, little by little, man, continue to get, this year compared to last year, man, we got a little bit better. And some of you, I've been in conversations where I've done consulting and coaching, and I sit down with the team and we walk through all the feedback, and I'll have leaders look at me and they're just like, where do I start? And I'm just like, what can we do now that can affect our next? And how can we just get 1% better every single week? And if you do that, that ministry will continue to grow in health, continue to see more students' lives change, and more leaders developed and deployed to live out their God-given design. Man, let feedback become your friend. Some of you need to get reacquainted with feedback. What's up? My name is, and get to know feedback a little better so you can become more effective, because the heart is this: we want to reach more students, develop more leaders. Can't wait for our next episode. We're going to have another Stronger Together episode coming soon. But until then, don't forget, we're stronger together. So refuse to do life and ministry alone. Let's go.
Thank you for listening to the Healthy Youth Ministry podcast. And thank you for investing in your leadership, because the next generation needs you. And we believe one of the key elements to a healthy and growing youth ministry is a healthy and growing youth pastor. To stay up to date with all things HYM, remember to follow our Instagram at HYM Conference, or check out our website, hymconference.com, as we will soon be releasing all the 2025 HYM One Day and National Conference information. And our final prayer and encouragement to you is this: Galatians 6:9. So let's not grow tired in doing what's good, for we know at the right time we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. So don't give up. And with that, we will see you next month for another episode of the Healthy Youth Ministry podcast.